Parker, what you said about Russ wasn't nice.
Welcome, everyone. The April 13th, 2023 meeting of the Asheville Area Riverfront Redevelopment Commission is called to order. Before we get into anything, I wanted to recognize David Brown and Darren Green, he's not here, as former chair and vice chair and all the great work they provided and support. And it's also Joe Ransmeyer's birthday, so congratulations.
Oh, happy
Birthday.
birthday. Nice birthday entrance.
I guess we need to do a roll call to make sure we know who's here.
We don't if we're not virtual. You can actually,
The only person do we have one absence? That's it?
Jim.
We have a quorum, okay.
we also don't have to roll call vote on things when we're like this.
Thank you. Okay, let's move to the minutes then. Does anyone have any deletions or edits that are needed to fix the minutes from February? Anybody have any ideas of changes they saw, missed anything? No?
Looks good. I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Sam, second, okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, good. I guess we are finished with that and on to public comment. Did we get any in advance stuff? No. All right, great. So the next really wonderful thing is to welcome our two new members, Joe Balkin and Jay Hackett. They're both city appointees and bring a lot of good experience. For those of you who don't know them, I don't know if you don't know them or not, but they have a lot of good background and experience to contribute. So we're really pleased to have you join us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you very much.
Jay, you've been on a journey. Welcome home.
All right.
We have already established, and just as a good thing to confirm, the meeting dates for the rest of this year. I think we have, well, after today, we have June, June, was it 8th? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And August 10th, October 12th, and December 14th. And we're meeting every other month, just to confirm with everybody about that. Of course, the work groups are going to have, oh, yes, ma'am?
It looks like the next location is back at the CBD building. Is that the case, or are we going to be back in here?
You're gonna try to keep it for Asheville.
Okay.
Good. Yep. The important part about making sure that we communicate with each other about the attendance is, obviously, we want to have a quorum. So if you know you're not going to be here, please make sure you let Steph or me know so that we can keep track of that. And we don't want something to end up where we aren't prepared and all of a sudden we have a meeting and nobody's, not enough here, obviously. So please do that. And we know sometimes things come up, but to the best of your ability, please do let us know ahead of time.
So there's an update on the county vacancies or news on?
Parker, is there any update on the county appointed?
The last,
Did you get an application?
yeah, last time I checked, we hadn't gotten one.
Somebody needs to check if I know it's done.
Okay. And it was before that, the time before that, in terms of like clarifying the qualifications for the position.
So you all need to work on that.
Yeah. Well, it's a city committee, so our clerk just does what the city clerk says in terms of like, the fine print of who can apply, who can.
Well, and that's interesting because we're moving to a quarterly appointment process. We just moved to it, so if it hasn't happened, it could be a few months. But you're appointed.
On their own schedule.
You're appointed.
Yes.
Yes,
Not our-
a
okay.
You
person.
can appoint.
You're appointed. Okay,
Your
never
own
mind.
schedule.
Never mind.
You to decide.
Yeah. And how we generally appoint people, generally is like on a rolling basis. It's just
Yeah.
backlog.
But our clerk still supports it. Okay.
Yeah, but it, yeah.
So you'll just have to
We'll figure
I'll
that
check
out.
if there's been an applicant. But in terms of the qualifications of an applicant.
I think that's
something
something
the city
pretty
would.
simple.
I'm here if you have a question, but I can't tell if you have a question.
Well, Parker's asking if we need to, or if the county clerk needs to work with the city clerk about qualifications for that position.
I think my question
How
is,
flexible is it?
So, for this, it's flexible, so technically, the ordinance says that one half of all appointing boards must have like a property owner or business owner in that seat. I think we're moving away from that, that's something to talk about today anyway. Our city clerk's office said if the county chose to appoint someone who's not a business or property owner, they would be happy to have that person on board, and they would serve at the pleasure of the commission.
okay,
For that application.
that's all I need to know.
Right.
Great.
Question. Business or property owner? I mean, if a person were a renter, they couldn't?
So it's just, the way things have been set up for the past 10 years is that half of the board had to be business or property owner, not all of it. So you could be a renter, you could be a worker, you could, but it would be only half. We're moving away from that requirement now. There was a reason for it, a political reason for it when the commission was first formed. It's no longer really relevant, or at least that's what I'm hearing from folks.
But Steph, would it not be true if a business owner was renting but owned all their business personal property there in the Riverfront area, that would be qualified?
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to own the property, but you could be a property owner or a business owner.
A business
Or we
owner.
also allow people who are the managers of businesses that are representatives. 'Cause that seems to make sense. It's just that overall, I think that this commission is interested in being more inclusive. And having that stipulation at all is not necessarily where this commission might be headed.
But we still want
Chair,
the potential candidate to be in the,
can we talk about this at the point in the agenda where we're supposed to talk about it? Aren't we going to be discussing this in detail?
Right, we're not, right now, that was just closing a loop here
Okay.
because Ben asked and also we wondered about the county appointee.
It's
but-
also on the agenda. On the
It
first
is.
bullet point
No,
under
it is.
the-
It is, Ben. Thank you for that. And I guess we're at the point now where Steph, do you know if we have a date yet for the orientation?
So what I'm going to suggest to you, not everyone has been able to fill out that poll. I just put it out yesterday. But the winning date by far is Tuesday, May 16th at noon, and lunch should be served if you guys can make it. So that's, right now, I think, yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
So please mark your calendars, Tuesday, May 16th. We will determine the location, but later, I don't know yet, explore Asheville's conference room is open.
Okay. So I think noon to 1:30.
We'll serve you lunch. I'll ask you ahead of time if you have dietary preferences. And at that meeting, we will, again, go over some orientation items, history of the commission, get you bonded, and talk about development impact review. And we'll vote on this ordinance. that we're going to do.
that's an hour and a half, 2 hours? Okay.
Okay, well, that's a great segue into what we wanted to focus on is the main topic today, which is considering updates to the ordinance and bylaws. I believe it's true that we have not, this organization has not reviewed and done anything significant with bylaws or ordinance in about 10 years. And so it seemed like it would be a good time to look at it. A lot of progress has already been made in the RAD with redevelopment, and there have been changes with the Planning and Design Subcommittee that was combined with another city committee. So that element that's in there, it takes quite a bit of the space up in the ordinances, needed to be taken out. We thought it'd be good to think about, the group was Sam and Kate and I and Stephanie. What other new members or areas of the Riverfront region would be good to include in here? So we thought we would propose some additions or changes to the composition of the commission. And I think the goal is to better serve the community in the riverfront in the region. That's the whole overall goal. So, we went through and did a lot of edits. You all have had access to that information now for at least a week to review, to comment, to question and so forth. So I think it would really be good to go ahead and discuss any concerns or questions that you have, and we can pull it up now. I think we can click on the ordinance. We should start there on our laptops.
I've got a question about why we would identify our meeting location in our updated bylaws to say specifically explore Asheville. I find that odd. We might just want to strike that we're.
What now, I'm sorry?
Page, well, it doesn't really tell me. Let's
Are you
see.
in the ordinance?
Yes,
Okay.
where it's just a little highlighted in section, Article 5, meetings, it actually doesn't tell me a page number for some reason. Maybe we can add page numbers. It says that we will have our meetings explore Asheville. That doesn't seem like a bylaw criteria to me, so. So let's scratch it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want us to
We're in the
comment directly
ordinance.
on?
We're going to look at the ordinance first, okay? Are you in that ordinance?
That's what I thought I was. Oh, I'm on bylaws? I thought I was on the ordinance league.
I don't know, but that's a good point. We don't have to have a building in there. We don't have to have a location built.
Maybe I
into it,
opened the
do we,
wrong
Steph?
link. I did.
Okay, so,
Sorry, I'm going under.
Chair, can I ask a
There's
question?
an ordinance that establishes the committee and the committee has its bylaws. I know.
sorry, question?
Yeah, if I may.
Yes.
I would really appreciate a little bit of the history of why it was the way it was politically, and then maybe why we're changing, or, David's been around, I mean, if some people that are here longer than I've been are more involved, we just, I think that'd be helpful. I mean, I did read through it all, but I'm kind of curious as to know why some of these changes are being made, making it smaller.
Oh, I think, let me just say in general, and everybody, Steph has way more, obviously, knowledge, and David and other people, but, I mean, we just looked at it and realized that it had been really focused around redeveloping the RAD, and that's a lot, that's been very successful. How should we consider moving forward? Is that really the only focus? Where are there other needs and things that we could benefit from having input on this commission? So that was the first thing, just that whole idea in general. If you're going to start adding positions, unless you end up with 35 people, you got to figure out how many you can swap from somewhere else. And, I don't know that Riverlink needs to, or SIBO needs to, or whatever other number needs to, so we started working on that. It wasn't a deliberate reduction, it was more like redistribution, if you will, Jeremy. But Steph and David, Steph, do you have any history you want to share?
Something I think it's important to consider. It's something we'll talk about at your meeting next week. So I'm Steph Dahl I think you all know me. And I get all formal when I get up here in the presentation booth here. So this commission was established after a lot of community discussion amongst pretty high-level community leaders in 2009. And what was happening at the time is that people knew that something needed to happen in the riverfront, and they weren't sure who was going to be the lead and what was going to happen. There wasn't a ton of trust between some of those organizations about who would do what. And it was determined that in order to build that trust, that this Riverfront Commission would include appointments from these boards that you can say it's this kind of unlikely bedfellows, like you have SIBO and Riverlink, right? Like surely they get along. Now they're in close proximity to each other. However, at the time, that was not necessarily the case, but these were different political interests. And that is the exact same reason why there are seats required for business or property owners. At the time, the property owners in and around the area, not just the River Arts District, but all along the riverfront, felt very, very strongly that the government or Riverlink or whomever should not be telling them what to do, and that they needed a seat at the table. So I don't take that for what it's worth, but it is my frank assessment. I was there, I was part of the creation of it. We stood the board up in May of 2010, which was the same exact time that we kicked off the planning for the Wilma Dykeman Riverway and 5 or so projects that you see down there now.
So those were the, there's always a, why does it look the way it does? It looked like that. The second part I can tell you is that the ordinance was copied almost word for word from the Downtown Commission's ordinance. So there were pieces in it that are unique where it lays out, it's what the riverfront is, the regional, describing the regional riverfront, talking about where design review is going to happen. But other than that, the powers and duties sections came 100% from what the Downtown Commission had, which is another ordinance that has not been updated, and it has a whole story behind of why it was created as well. Are there questions? Yeah.
When, of course, this is my first meeting, so you all might already know this answer. I don't. When these commissions are created, are they created with an end in mind, that when we get to a certain point, we know that our work is completed, or are they created and you just iterate along the way?
That is such a great question, Jay. Technically, they're not created with an end in mind. When the city council stands up a task force, that is usually when they think that group has one discrete task that they can complete in a very specific, maybe short term. And then I would defer to Councilwoman Turner to talk about how she thinks today about boards and commissions. We certainly went through an interesting few years of talking about restructuring them, but yeah, there is most boards and commissions, but not all, are established by ordinance. Yours is by ordinance. Not everyone is.
We have talked about, though, Jay, the idea, and during the discussion that's been had in the last year about how the city should go with the boards and commissions next and so forth, that maybe it's a good idea to have a sunset date in there so that then you reevaluate, are you still needed? Do you need to change what's going on? It's typical of government everywhere that I've been involved with. You start it and it just goes until, the sun is gone. And so there is that conversation that we could have. Do we want to put a date in there or not? Or, here we are 10 years, it's probably not a bad time to be looking at it.
I just wanted to point out that our commission is not limited to the River Arts District, but it's the riverfront.
Correct.
And we've talked about maybe even extending it as far as Black Mountain or
Correct.
certainly to Woodfin and beyond that way. So,
And Woodfin already does appoint. Jim McAllister sits on, that's the one seat that we have for Woodfin because it is on the riverfront. The commission clearly, the ordinance clearly states that this commission is for the health, safety, and welfare of the entire regional riverfront. But it also says that the focus of this commission is within the city's jurisdictional boundaries. And it just happened to be that we did a lot of work the last 10 years in the River Arts District specifically. But yes, it's a regional focus.
So then the bylaws say just Buncombe County, though.
Within Buncombe counties, yeah, that's the regional riverfront.
Well, it's that 1 mile, right? 1 mile from the river.
I can't, so I admit I can't hear you. Maybe,
Oh.
and probably they can't hear you either if you're, unless
Right.
you're talking in there.
I just said the ordinance uses the word district and it capitalizes it, implying that there's a map of a district.
There
This-
is.
This committee,
1 mile from riverfront.
but does it go to Susquehanna, know what I'm talking about? Okay.
I don't know that it goes to Black Mountain, that's why I mentioned it.
So we have a river district, like design review area, and in the city's boundary, we have it mapped. We do not have the area outside of the city's jurisdiction mapped. We just say generally property along the riverfront and outside of the city's jurisdiction, so.
So with that as background, could we look and see who has questions or concerns with the proposed edits, I suppose you would say, changes that we provided? David?
Just a comment, CBO's going from 2 to 1 according to what's being proposed, and I don't have a problem with that. Jeremy and I are probably the only business owners and property owners in CBO in that district. So the other person from CBO could be just a general public member.
And I think when we were talking about this, we were just imagining attrition being the solution, not, removing somebody. So at the next go, like Riverlink would only have one, SIBO would have one, I forget what the other numbers are, but as they change, they would change based on when people.
Would you have to address that in here?
No, I don't know if we have to address it or not. I mean, we're not.
No, we had to do
That makes sense, because you wouldn't want everybody going off at the same time.
But I think you would have to say, address the transition, or else once it's passed.
You can, I'm just saying that
I think
when,
you
when
would,
we
I
created
think
the
you should.
commission, we said, you know, everyone has these terms, we can explain how we were gonna stagger them.
We could simply say the change in number would happen through attrition, not by something, if you're taking notes, I'm not taking them right this minute, but we could certainly add that in there. Do you think anybody have any problem with that? We just clarify how the process would go?
I think that's fine.
Okay.
The rest looks fine. As the person who has to vote on this ordinance, I don't see any troubling things. But if y'all do, make sure I know.
Yeah, we took out all the reference to the Planning Design Committee. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
I can't remember because it's not part of us anymore. We thought it'd be good to add somebody potentially from the Swananoa area, even though they don't have per se a government. But that's a big, stretch between Black Mountain and Asheville. And I know there's an active group there. Is it called the Friends of the Swananoa, I believe? And somebody at Warren Wilson College maybe is leading it. So we thought if everyone agreed that would be a good addition, we would then work a little harder and more on who that person might be.
I think it's Swan, right? Swananoa Water Action Network, is that who it is?
It could be, I'm not sure. Not sure then. Any other questions about the membership part? Just,
I do.
yeah.
When we,
12.
just something to consider as you edit, is this gonna be voted on today?
No.
I don't know.
Are we?
We have to
taking notes?
wait and to have, I think, for public consumption, right? The edits and changes, and then we post those.
Do you want me to explain the process?
Go ahead,
Okay.
please.
So the way this is,
The way this is going to work is that today you guys are talking about some changes or ideas that you would like to incorporate into this document. And we're taking those back as staff. And when I say staff, I mean the city clerk's office, my office, and legal. And we're going to consider all those changes and incorporate it into one clean document. We would come back to you in May at that special meeting, which is also a public meeting. And we would have this posted online, and you guys can vote on supporting it. Your vote would be, we would support this going to council for a vote. And then it would go to the city council's board and commissions committee. So that would be another public meeting, and that would be in June. And then at the end of June or the first council meeting in July, council would then, unless they had a problem with it and did not move it forward, they would then consider changing your ordinance. So we're talking about late June or early July, the earliest. Okay?
All right. So yeah, I do have a comment for us to consider as we have ideas about this. Anytime you place requirements, they could translate as quotas, and then you start to wonder how and why they were created. It's based upon having read the document and the things I've heard. There were some organizations that were identified, and in the document, organizations were identified. And when you identify things like property owner, business owner, you're also vicariously naming a socioeconomic status. Is there space or something to consider actually naming that the commission should include somebody who is not a property owner, which says to the renter world, we want you as part of this. If we can name the organizations, we can name other demographics, we could also name that. This type of thing seems a bit more inclusive.
You're right, Jay. I think there is some reference, I can't remember the exact verbiage about, but people who live and work in the area or something. Do you know where that is, Steph? I don't.
It says, and others with interest and expertise, which is a pretty wide net. It doesn't specifically say.
Right. And what I'm saying is a more powerful, direct thing. I'm saying that if we can name property owner, business owner, then we should also be allowed to name somebody who is not a property owner.
For what it's worth, council has added that specific word, renter, to several membership
Okay.
policies, yeah, because it matters to them too.
Yeah.
Which section is that in?
I'm specifically looking at membership.
Section 2 on the ordinance.
You in
Section,
the ordinance? Okay, section.
ordinance, section 2, B, composition. So in the bullet points, A, B, C, D, E, none of them say renter.
I'm having a hard time
I
finding
read
it.
this too.
Page 1 of section
Oh,
2, the
page
first
1.
page,
Uh-huh.
the section on
Oh,
membership.
composition, okay.
Composition. So bullet A is appointed by county, B, C, D. If we're shortening some of those numbers, we can at least say one renter. Do y'all see what I'm saying?
I wouldn't list it there, though, because
Yeah, we
renter from where? I mean, you can have a renter from any of those, but I would list it somewhere else. I wouldn't list it as a, because those are not, you're talking about organizations or municipalities.
Yeah, I don't see any problem with adding it here, though.
Up above in that composition paragraph, I would think.
The paragraph.
It can apply to all of them. You got a renter
It could be
from-
both, right? It could say that there should be a balance between business owners, renters, and others with interest and expertise. And then at the paragraph 2 that Jay's pointing out, it could say limited, but not limited to property owners, renters, merchants, et cetera. Put the word in there twice.
You could put the word renters in that paragraph, yeah.
Yeah, both.
Representation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, it is true that
It
the
doesn't
average
say where we're-
citizen does not read ordinance, but it is also true that ordinance is what carries
Mhm.
government and what holds folks accountable, so.
And it takes quite a bit of effort to get an ordinance changed and through the process of review and public comment and council and voting and implementation and updating books, so do it all while we're there. And I think this is a good addition in both places. And it doesn't say that we're not going to appoint someone if this renter seat is not filled. It does say, it suggests that we would prioritize a renter if that was someone applying, right? We would want that balance.
Chair, I agree, and I'm pleased that this conversation's happening. Another way to get potentially even more specific would be to specify housing authority, because they have a number of properties, Pisgah View, Hillcrest, Southside, all very impacted by the riverfront. So that would be another option, since we're brainstorming or suggesting potential bodies to house. some
Renters would cover that, right?
Absolutely. Residents of housing authority would be renters, or, staff potentially, who represent the interest of those residents.
That's interesting. I mean, it falls into the interest of. I don't know that we have to get so specific as to name where they might live, but it allows for that.
So
Unless you
you're
want
suggesting-
specific representation from public housing along the river. I mean, that's up to y'all, I guess, too. But this doesn't preclude them.
So what are you suggesting? Renter isn't adequate, you want to have it specifically stated?
It's just an idea to add more specificity to mirror some of the other letter items that are very specific in terms of organizational representation. If we're looking for inclusivity and looking for renters, and we're looking for something that's highly impacted and reliant on the riverfront health, I think that would be an idea. I'm not proposing it, I'm just adding it to the conversation.
Jay, do you think that the public housing population would have an interest in participating, or?
I think somebody would from there. That's a huge population, and from what I understand, just the demography around the river, that's a large population, and they're a huge property owner.
Yeah, they might be the largest residential property.
Yeah, and especially now that they've gone rad, I mean, it's a whole different ballgame. So, yes, I think that they might, and I think it's at least cordial to attempt and extend the invitation. And I think that as a city commission, it's I'm part of it, it's our responsibility to think about folks that might not have been invited before, even if it's just one seat. But also, housing authority is not what I mean by renter.
Right. You don't mean
No,
David
but-
Nash.
Well, in my case, I'm a business owner, property owner, and renter, but I didn't say specifically renter.
Yeah.
Well, it also doesn't say residential renter, but,
Well, there you go.
So I think what we've discussed actually checks off two boxes. If we can add the language, I think a few of y'all put in there, like some in that paragraph, in the statement, renter. And then also have one of these designations, housing authority representative. They can choose who or how, I mean,
So it could be a resident or a staff member or just someone to represent them.
I think so.
I would think so too.
How about, I'm typing it in, can you guys see it?
Yeah, I can see.
How
I have
about
a
that? There
question.
should be a balance between business owners, renters, residents, and others with interest and expertise. And then I'm gonna scoot us down, move us along, and I'm gonna put renters right right after property owners, comma. How's that?
Real quick question on how these organizations that have, numbers of appointees should interpret balancing these categories. To your earlier point about quotas, I would interpret that as saying, well, if you've got a renter, then you need to put somebody to balance that on the other side. And you get specific, all of a sudden you're saying, okay, we got one in this category, now we have to have one in this category. We got one in this category, now we've got to get one in this category.
I don't know that it works quite like that. From my experience, and I'll just a little background here, we're seeing really reduced attendance. We're actually seeing resigning people every month at council, which is why we're kind of pulling back and looking at restructure. I think the last council meeting, 9 people resigned from boards, and because they couldn't make it. So we're not actually seeing like this rush of people where we're like, oh, okay, well, we can get you and you because it's balanced. We're actually probably having to choose between a small group of people that may or may not fit these buckets. So I don't think we can require it to have these because we might find ourselves short-seated. But when we do appoint to these, we have a boards and commissions process that reviews all the applications, charts it, the demographics, the location, if renters is in there, to be checked or not. And that's how we prioritize and look at the overall balance.
So this is
That helps.
aspirational language.
Yeah, because
Okay.
if it's requirement, then you can find yourself stuck.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Plus it's calling it out, if you will, as
Yeah.
opposed to just having it somewhere in there, maybe sort of, but actually saying, and that, I guess there's a good benefit.
And it's a good time because it's coming to council, it'll be fresh on their minds. We're adjusting the boards and commissions, we'll remember this conversation.
And when the history is read, if they go back and see it there, somebody will recall this conversation, the rationale behind it. And the person will, oh, well, they thought of it.
Yep, that's great. So I've added that, if everybody's happy with that. I'm a little worried about time because I know I don't get to stay much past 5.
Yeah, we do need to keep mindful of that. We thought we might have about 20 minutes on this, so we need to keep thinking. I don't know if that needs to be added. That's in the ordinance, so I'm not sure if the bylaws have to be adjusted according to that same thing or not. We haven't gotten there yet. Other topics to consider in the ordinance, issues that people have, that, disagreements with what we proposed or additions or whatever?
There's one thing about mixing the county and city that I was just worried about who's in charge.
The staffing of it?
Yeah, I was just a little worried about this is city commission, so the city should be in charge.
Well, but we're making it more city-county commission by this process. It's like more of a Asheville, Buncombe, Riverfront.
Yeah, I just get a little worried about who's in
Considering
charge.
if we're
Maybe
meeting,
things won't happen because they'll be going like this.
oh, I don't think so. In fact, the county and city are working together amazingly right now. But if it's always in this room or on a city property, I would say the city is likely to manage it.
I think what we were trying to do was to be a little more thoughtful,
No, it talks about.
to be a little more thoughtful related to the fact that development, is obviously going to be not as intense as it has been in the RAD, because a lot of it's been done. So where does it go next? It goes farther out of the city or along the other rivers that are related, and we wanted to make sure that we were thinking about that in a, caring way. But we were looking at having a support staff for the commission from the county, but not changing it to a county commission, right?
So, in order for it to become a joint city-county commission, the county commission has to adopt an ordinance to opt into having it be a joint board. And at that time, we would have discussion about what kind of staffing or resources they could provide.
But right now, it's a city commission, which we are asking for some support from the county before.
And it does say later in the bylaws, the next document, if we want to get there soon, it says that the city manager and the county manager will each designate an employee of the city or the county to serve. So it doesn't sound like that we're going to appoint two. It sounds like one will be chosen.
I thought it was one from the county, one from the city.
Is it?
Isn't that
It doesn't
what
read,
it says?
it could be interpreted either way.
It is done in different ways. If you look at,
It's to serve as secretary, so one person.
I think that is something that would be decided by city and county leadership, honestly.
If county signed on to that process, maybe then, yeah.
I was about to say, the county would have to
The county.
adopt this as well in order to.
The county would have to, sign on and adopt an ordinance, yes. Similar to, the reparations commission or even
Is that an expected part of this process? Were we expecting to do that? Take it to the county as well?
I think we were just trying to get some involvement from the county, more like a support person, staff person, right? Staff, that's what we talked about. I don't think we were necessarily going to take it to the county and having them add it as an ordinance.
I think right now it's open, and what needs to happen is there just needs to be a conversation about what the county commission is interested in.
Parker?
So we could
Speak
do
for
that
everyone?
offline for 2 weeks.
Well, I know this has evolved a lot. I remember when I first asked you, Stephanie, about this commission, you said it started as, basically self-appointed people that formed in the beginning, business owners and so forth, and then it became more solidified.
Yeah, so let me clarify, before the commission, there was a group called the Riverfront Study Group. And
Okay.
they included members from the chamber and Riverlink and CEVO and the county and the city and other organizations. Tech was at the table. That was just like a group of interested citizens that came together, and it was all leadership.
Mhm.
Any other comments about the ordinance? I guess we'll get another shot at it, so to speak, at our May meeting, right? We can clean it up, everybody will have access to it, right, Steph? And then we'll come to agree at that meeting.
So we
Any
can,
comments?
so we can tweak the wording and.
Yeah, we can do small tweaks, but then we want to move it on to the city council. Okay. If you're all okay with that, let's look at the bylaws then, which we'll call rules of procedure. Again, much of this was just adding Buncombe and taking out redevelopment and then removing the sections that weren't relevant anymore.
Yeah, this one looked pretty clean, except for the area about identifying the meeting location,
Yeah.
which I
definitely
tagged in here.
Change that.
And the purpose paragraph there in the beginning does mention a ordinance set by the county commission as well as council. And so
Oh, it's suggesting it again, huh?
I'm not opposed to that. It's just,
Oh, yeah.
we kind of need to decide what we're doing.
I thought that isn't specific to them setting an ordinance, but duties and responsibilities. Oh,
Duties and responsibilities
yeah,
prescribed by the
yeah.
council.
I see where you are now.
To set those.
Mhm.
But it just refers to the city code.
So you're saying that.
It doesn't
this-
refer to
This
a county.
actually is requiring the county to have an ordinance.
It's suggesting that, yeah.
That's in our bylaws.
Wait, oh, because it's, yeah.
It's the third line down under Article 2.
Yeah.
Sentence structure can fix that.
Yeah, I agree, maybe some sentences.
Does that create a conflict? To say
We'll make
that,
sure when legal looks at it, that everything is aligned. We won't create any conflicts.
okay.
I think it sounds like we're not sure if we want to take this to Buncombe County right now, so, yeah, okay. Then that can get attention. And then here's the district is defined as the area within Buncombe County boundaries adjacent to the French Broad or Swananoa rivers, including non-adjacent yet nearby land, having characteristics or features directly impacting Riverfront District. The area is fluid and may change over time, it says.
It needs a pun. Every bylaw needs a pun.
Fluid. Oh, man. Can you tell us the end of our governing day? We're both,
Yeah, my brain is not.
and we're joking a lot, yep.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
she just read that statement there, and I'm wondering if we should, where it says impacting the economic climate, if we should not also add economic and environmental climate. We have been talking about all
I
the
like that.
problems we had with the stormwater and all that, so.
Yes, sir.
I like
Show
that.
me- Tell me where that is exactly?
Definitions and geographic area defined,
Okay.
that paragraph where it says
Economic and environmental.
This one might not be editable, I don't know. Someone can edit it, just edit it, but I can't seem to edit it.
Thanks for that, David, that's good. Good point.
That's what I'm here for.
Okay. Um, It says here about the secretary that the county manager and the city manager would each designate an employee to serve as secretary. So there'd be 2 staff persons.
I interpreted that as they might agree on one, as
It says shall
secretary.
each designate an employee.
Oh, it does say,
Yeah.
yeah.
To Jeremy's,
Yeah, we don't need to have 2, maybe.
to Jeremy's point about who's in charge.
Who's in charge?
It's a city
Ordinance, so.
The
Yep.
county manager's not gonna wanna have an opinion unless it's a joint commission, so, which again, I'm not opposed to, just.
Talk a bit more about it. Are there any other comments about the bylaws? Questions?
No, it looked pretty good.
Do we want to put a sunset date in here, or just leave it as it is, related to the timeline, undetermined?
I kind of like the idea of sunsetting unless the commission determines it needs. That would solve like our problem now, where you have just committees that grow and grow and grow. You know, it gives the committee itself a chance to reevaluate and say, we want to continue this, revisit it, put a 10-year sunset on it.
And maybe one way to do that would be to say in there explicitly somewhere, I'm not exactly sure where, that in 10 years, the value and, utility and need for the commission will be reevaluated or something like that.
We have to
Maybe we could do that.
re-up it, we have to re-vote to
To
continue.
renew it or continue it or something.
I mean, you know.
I think the
To continue
sunset,
the commission?
Yeah.
Because we might just let it go at some day. I mean,
Or you might want
I
to
would
adjust
like-
it like we're doing now.
yeah, yeah.
the
Well,
sunset
Well, nothing
idea
prevents that. The
also
last
gives you-
line says we can amend this at any time by a majority vote of this commission, so.
It also gives you a time to celebrate accomplishments. And when you have a never-ending thing, it just gets old, eventually gets boring, and whatever wins you've had, people ignore them and forget them, and you only get complaints. But if you actually have a sunset date, then you can have some type of moment to say, look what we did together, and also the evaluation, et cetera, et cetera. I just think that when it comes to governmental things, one reason that people don't participate and don't care is because it means nothing to them. And the reason it doesn't mean anything to them, because we never accomplish anything. But if we can say we have accomplished a thing, then so be it. Like, if this was created and the stuff that's going on in the RAD has been the result of a lot of this background work, that's the reason to have celebrated.
And we need to celebrate her. You. Who is the force behind so much of it, along with city council and all of us who contribute in other ways, but,
So
yes,
that sunset idea, it is good for lots of things.
I agree. So maybe we can figure out a way to put that in
This
there.
gives you a chance to reevaluate, like, the city was trying to reevaluate the whole structure. Well, if you start to build that into these subcommittees, it's just a natural way to do it, naturally. What would you suggest, Tom? 10 years.
10 years.
I think
Yeah.
that's too long.
5 years.
Well, what about
If it's
some nice round number like 2030?
I just feel like if it's, whether it's a sunset date or a reevaluation date, I think a reevaluation date, sort of like what we're doing now, is probably helpful, and I feel like 10 years at the rate in which things are changing feels long.
So you need
And we don't
five.
have to do anything in 5 years, but I think it's a good time to sort of circle back and look at things.
What are our terms? Are they still 3 and 3? To make it 6 years?
Is there, Chair,
Yes.
is there a reason particularly that you are suggesting taking the number of members from 14 back to 12? Is that because of reducing Riverlink to 1 member and to SIBO to one member?
It just worked out, we were reassigning, we're taking a Riverlink and, because we were adding several, Swananoa, Black Mountain, I forget, there was some other potential. Instead of adding and having a bigger and bigger commission, it seemed to be better to redistribute some of those positions.
Well, maybe we could have a range, like 12 to 14, instead of a set.
But we have a number there's a number identified for each of these appointments, though.
But to my point earlier, you can't always fill them. But I don't think it means like we're not following our bylaws if we can't fill every seat.
No,
Yeah, we're still working.
It doesn't mean we're like frozen and can't operate or do
we
business.
still have a quorum would be a percentage of the
That are in.
Right.
appointed
In the
members
seats,
Right.
at any one time.
Right, so it's probably okay. But yeah, so I think some of them do actually give a range. It might be worth referencing of their city commissions if they have ranges, Steph. I'm trying to think. Did you catch that part? The number of members? You think they're exact, all of them?
Yeah, I haven't either.
I guess I'm thinking of nonprofit boards I'm on. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
nonprofit boards are,
Yeah,
that's their bylaws, they don't have to have that many people.
Does the 12 in the bylaws sync up with what's in the ordinance now with all the additions and subtractions?
That's what we were hoping we counted right.
yeah, it does. I mean, these changes look good. I don't think we need to labor over them too much.
Any other thoughts then? Comments?
So do you put the sunset date, is it in the bylaws or does it go in the ordinance or both?
Probably both.
The bylaws, right? Because we can change our bylaws anytime a majority of us agrees. The ordinance part, the reason it's coming to go to city council is because we're changing the name and we're changing a bunch of other things in the ordinance. So it seems to me to make sense to go into the bylaws. What do you think?
Staff would check with legal, but that sounds reasonable.
And when will we discuss the new name? Is that in work group?
You just missed it.
Okay.
We could try and get a J in there. I'm just kidding.
Okay,
Just takes out.
I think we've made a lot of progress, and thanks everybody for reading and participating and thinking and proposing and helping everybody adjust wherever, whatever the original thoughts were. I think we're making good progress on this. So then the next topic is updates from a couple of our work groups. And you want to go ahead?
Sure. I'll keep it short. The AAR, we have a work group with what was formerly SACI, now it's the Sustainability Advisory Committee. So it's a work group composed of representatives from our committee, or commission, myself, and Jeremy. I don't know if you're sitting as part of this commission or as a representative. Okay.
These are part of our 3 and 3.
Okay, and then Tim Orman, Joel Osgood, and Alicia Goldstein, not related to Jeremy Goldstein. And then staff liaisons, Bridget and Steph. And it's focused on green infrastructure and stormwater specifically. And the first meeting, it was more of an introductory meeting. We met with Amy Dayton, the stormwater department manager. She's the interim stormwater department manager. And the stormwater utility fee consultant. He's based in Charlotte. I forget his name, but we wanted to learn a little bit more about their progress and the implementation steps. That study assesses our current stormwater program and future needs to determine the appropriate level of service and fee. So this is an ongoing study. They talked a little bit about the public engagement and outreach and input process that will have in-person information events, online survey and questionnaire. They encourage people to attend those to provide feedback and also to help, I think, demonstrate an interest in this topic. And part of that meeting, we also discussed the challenges of staff turnover and shortages in the department have been an ongoing challenge. The second meeting, we looked at the Stormwater Task Force report, which I think was 2020, 2021. But the majority of that meeting was dedicated to Vidila Satvica's presentation on the updates to the landscape ordinance, which include things related to stormwater, which is increased soil volume for trees, a green roof standard. And he has presented this to, I believe, the Downtown Commission and maybe a couple other organizations, and is generally receiving, I think, he reported positive feedback. We mostly got a pretty general summary and hoping to get more information over the next month or so. Our meeting for this month, the work group meeting, has been canceled, so I'll have a report for the next meeting.
Thank you. And for the Rad Vitality Group, we know that, I think you had a meeting at the end of last month, so if you could give us a quick summary of that, that'd be good, and we can talk a little bit more.
Okay. Yes, Jeremy Goldstein and Joe Hawken met with me, and we just basically called it an initial meeting and just went over some of the things we've been asked to look at, parking, and I think we talked about stormwater some as well. So I don't think that we came up with anything new, it's just we were trying to just establish a group and hope to meet again sometime next month when we can find a date that hopefully more of our group can attend.
That was part of the discussion that Steph and I had about the group, is there's too many people on one group, so in order to have it meet the requirements for only a maximum number of attendees, you can't have more than half of the board there. We need to probably reconsider how to break that group up into other groups, so that not only could you maybe focus and get more work done, but also be within the requirements. So that may be something you all want to think about, not all meeting together, but breaking up into smaller subgroups.
So to have more than half, we would have to have more than 6 then, or that's more than 7? Or?
There are 7 people that are now listed in parking.
Well, I think the likelihood of getting us all there at the same time is kind of slim, but.
I don't think that's the question.
That's
The
not the
question
question.
is, you
Okay.
can't have that many people.
Well, that's fine.
So maybe
that's-
if you broke it up into the public art and transportation and parking, 2 different groups, you could focus yourselves and attend and get enough.
Well, the other issue that we did talk about is public safety and pedestrian safety and so forth. So I'm fine with restructuring it if you think we need another group. Is that what we need?
Well, just to break that group up into 2 different ones, public art maybe, and then the parking and transportation. Maybe, y'all could think about that and parse yourselves out appropriately, and then somebody, one person could kind of lead this group and the other person could lead the other, and y'all would be able to come back and report what your plans are and your focus and what you're making progress on.
For the new guy in the room, did this Rad Vitality have a specific objective or mandate in mind beyond just Rad Vitality?
That's a good question. I think there's history involved. Steph can share with us maybe.
I'll pull up, I think it's in their annual report.
Well, the one thing we did come up with was that parking, seems to be the city's the main entity that could really affect parking. What else, besides perhaps sharing parking lots at evening hours if a business doesn't need. I know there's been some issue lately with people coming in for events and using people's parking lots. I know at the Riverview Station, for instance, have people come in for a marathon race and take over their parking lot where their own businesses couldn't use it. So
I think that's something for you guys to start, you talk about or do what you're going to do with, not necessarily here, so.
Okay.
Parking and transportation, or you could rename it, but the point is, there's too many people in one committee, so you need to parse yourselves and become 2 maybe.
And is that the responsibility, or what's the process for breaking into?
I think I could do that, but it'd be nicer if you all could decide yourselves where your interest is.
If that's okay.
And then stick with it and just go to that one.
Yeah.
I think Jeremy might want to be on a third subgroup, right?
No, I'm good.
Well, Chair,
Well,
I
when
was,
SEBA goes down to one, David's got seniority, so I'm gone.
So is the process to meet as the Rat Vitality Work Group, come up with how to break it up, and then it's done?
I mean, I think it's written down here. Form a public art group and a transportation.
Yeah,
group.
that's what I
Bring
said.
them in two. we're
Just
done.
do it.
That's it. How about that? Art.
Well,
Yeah.
some kind
I'm gonna be on
of,
the transportation and parking group.
some kind of competition or contest. Who knows?
well, Chair, just real quick, and I may have missed the meeting when we went to the subgroups. Is it because we have too much content in our normal meetings that we feel that we need to have the additional meetings with the subgroups? Is it,
It's because we're meeting every other month, and there's a lot of work to do. So it's kind of what you're saying, and also every other month. That means during the month, we're not having meetings. That's a real good time for everybody else working their subgroups.
And working groups, for clarity, are not required to be like public meetings and staffed and so on. It's different than a committee, so it can be more fluid, flexible, and discussion based.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's worth discussing here, but I would have a question on specifying the River Arts District vitality. If we're talking about expanding the scope of this body, maybe, you know,
The name of their work.
not being so specific.
Good point.
Maybe it should be Riverfront Vitality.
The good thing is your working group can decide that.
Okay, we can do that. We'll put that on, we'll put that on the agenda
I mean, the
for
point is for you to have some goals that you're trying to achieve and meet and do what you're gonna do, and that it's part of our overall effort, and we get reports and that kind of thing. So, you know, we can maybe come back, whoever is on that group and decides where they wanna go, come back with your interests and say, this is where I would like to be. And then you can start working on what you're gonna try to achieve.
Okay, cool.
We see this a lot in other boards and commissions, like the Affordable Housing Committee, for example, has some working groups, and they'll go out and intentionally do a task. Like, they had a build group, so they gathered all the builders and said, you know, what's your input on affordability and what do you see as helpful? And then that went back to the committee as, here's what we learned. So that, it's really that kind of context. It's not prescribed committee work. You know, if you saw an opportunity and you wanted to gain some momentum and bring something to commission, you could.
Okay, I think that, with all of that in mind, we probably need to go to the member updates before some people have to
I have to
leave.
go in a minute.
Yes,
I only
ma'am.
have one update
Go
that's
right ahead.
really good, and guess what it is? As drafted, the city's budget includes money to do the design guideline updates for the riverfront and downtown. I have been pounding the pavement and the mics and all the things, and it is in the draft.
Good.
It's not, that
Just
draft
better
is not
not end
final.
up on the cutting board.
But it is, I don't know if y'all heard the latest. Before Todd Oklachaney left the planning department, we had a discussion about this, about what could staff take and bite off, and what could outside consultants potentially have to do. And this is not a large money, it's $50,000. But that is what the planning department put forth as what they thought they would need to do this. So, yeah, it's taken, I've been saying this for 5 years.
Yay.
5 years on this,
Good.
maybe 6 years.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thank your fellow councilwomen, or my fellow councilwomen, because they're adding it in.
Yay.
Thanks for advocating for us.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, Parker?
Beat that.
Well, it's budget season, I'll keep mine limited to budget stuff too.
You got $50,000 also?
Just let, yeah.
It'd be helpful.
We haven't found any money like that laying around, no. Let's see, yeah, it's my third budget, it's gonna be my toughest budget by far. I think the answer to that is, there's a lot of personnel that deserve and need raises. A lot of people promised in the past a raise, a lot of people that need a COLA this year. And then there's people like teachers who have not gotten a COLA in over 10 years, and so.
And compression and living wage growth.
Yeah, so
You need to double their salary.
I at least, I can't speak for others, but I will be advocating for increasing the North Carolina teacher supplement for the first time
Nice.
in a long time. So we'll see. 2 other budget items that you'll see. One's breaking news, no one knows this yet. There'll be a request for a revolving loan fund offered by the county in cooperation with the North Carolina Clean Energy Fund, which just in the last month exists to help some money in the budget, I hope, again, write your emails, for a Buncombe County Clean Water Fund. I forget what we've come up with the name, I think there's different names for that. I welcome your naming input. And that would go, money that would go towards funding stormwater improvements, riverfront improvements.
Nice.
That exist, that are already in plan, in existing plans like the Riverfront, Central Asheville watershed. Restoration, yeah, so.
You know, let me add one more update on behalf of both of our governing bodies, because I don't know if y'all are familiar with the budgeting process. How we do it is we start with priorities, and then we come back with recommendations from staff on how to achieve said priorities. So the number one priority for both the county and the city for this next year is public safety. And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, we both came to that independently.
Independently, I didn't know y'all had, and then we did, and we were like, ooh, let's do it together.
How was the level of staffing at the police department?
Horrible. Still remains horrible. I mean, we see some hope. We got, 12, I think I swore in 11 or 12 officers a couple months ago. This crew only has 5 training. I mean, we had at our budget planning session, I just point blank, we welcomed the chief for questions, and I point blank asked him, like, what's it going to take? And I think even the mayor said, if you had a blank check, what would it take to restaff? And he said, with a blank check, we could probably restaff in 7 years instead of 10. So it's more than money. We are looking at incentivizing, increasing wages for public safety and stuff, but there's also some lateral hires and sign-on and so on. But it's pretty rough, and right now what I'm hoping to see happen is more collaboration between the county and the city, and these talks are in the works, are already happening, where the county could perhaps help us in support with additional officers and presence, particularly in downtown as a pilot, perhaps other areas of the community. This is underway. The public hasn't been informed of this, it's still gelling, but I think it's,
You'll see sheriff's deputies downtown.
yes. We're still trying to figure out when and how often and for how long, but yeah, it's a thing. We need them. Sooner the better, yeah.
Keep us posted.
Sure.
Yes, if anybody's getting up early tomorrow, we have a 7 o'clock breakfast meeting at
Why so
UNCA, the Sherrill Center, and on the agenda is Division Engineer Tim Anderson, talk about infrastructure and the I-26 project. And then we have Dr. William Hathaway with MAHEC, talking about the healthcare industry in this area.
Great. Quick update from Riverlink is, as of today, or yesterday, today, I guess, the groundbreaking occurred for Karen Craig Nolan Park, the Greenway. They're actually out there finally after all this time, starting to dig. So it's the beginning of making that area a lot more useful to folks, and we're looking forward to
What's the
seeing it.
expected time frame for that part of the project?
If you went without any interruptions, like no huge rainstorms for 3 weeks or whatever it is, they're thinking it's a 2.5 month project. But,
So 8 months.
you don't know, you just don't know, you get that
10
equipment out there, or you run into some issue you didn't know, and then obviously it's more, so, I don't know. We're gonna have to wait and see, and then we'll have a ribbon cutting ceremony, probably late summer, early fall, when we're sure everything's done, and have a party and sing and dance and drink and carry on. Everyone will
I
be invited.
invite everybody across the street.
Yes, yes, thank you. And Jim is not here to do wood fence, so then this Chamber of Commerce, want to do any kind of update? Oh, no? No?
I'm not on the, well, I've been appointed by them, but I'm not on the, not attending the meetings.
Okay, I guess we could have had Sam, but she's gone, so.
I am joining the chamber board later this year, so I'll have more to,
You'll know more, okay,
I'll know more.
that's great.
Well, I'm on the chamber board, and I don't represent them right now, but I'm interested, does this body have an opinion about the business improvement district?
The business improvement district?
Proposed, it's not even proposed yet. This chamber is doing a study, a feasibility study and
Yeah,
assessment this
excellent.
month and next. It's too bad we lost Sam, but if this body had it.
There's a meeting next week.
Yep, and there's certainly room for a body like this to make a recommendation for or against. I think all those things will matter, especially if we're talking about another vital business district, which is the River District. I think a bid does exist in the city ordinances, it was never taxed. I don't know if the district is specific, district is just downtown, not River Arts.
No, there's a River Arts District, a downtown, a South Slope, and a Charlotte Street District.
That the chamber's evaluating, or that were in that bid point ordinance?
The city adopted in
Okay.
order to borrow money at lower interest rates.
So they could have different pools, okay, yeah, so it could,
There are, and I can share with you what those boundaries are, or
Yeah.
share with the chamber data.
I would certainly, the process for getting an agenda item would be, of course, the chair or a few of us to say we'd like to hear that, and I would like to hear this board's input.
So we just need to maybe look at for the next, I don't know if we can do it May meeting, it's a special meeting, it seems like it's already gonna be busy.
You've got time.
So maybe we do it the next.
You got
one,
time.
too.
This is a longer term
This is a,
conversation.
it could be a year,
Okay.
6
Well, and I
months.
think our opinion is going to be based on what's proposed, or I guess.
Yeah.
It just depends on what it looks like and what it is, and where it is.
Right. Maybe it's best to have like Sam give a presentation on what the chamber learns, rather than, that maybe that's the agenda item, if they're willing. Yeah.
I was invited to a meeting next week on that, at the
Yeah.
chamber for an hour and a half, so.
It's all they're focused on right now. I understand they're doing a lot of outreach and meetings, so. Weigh in. If there were ever a time, it'd probably be now, but I don't think it's a replacement for what should be standard services or expectations
I'm
beginning.
trying to keep an open mind about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think we are at the point.
Motion to adjourn?
Can I ask a question? Yes. Before that
You
happens?
may.
Again, from the new guy. Related to public safety and related to, the development that's happening, how do we engage, whether it's through this body or someone else, NCDOT? If we talk about stormwater, we talk about public safety, and a lot of what we are doing as a commission relates to, I guess, roadways that are not within the county's nor the city's jurisdiction or control. So how do we get a representative of the
I don't-
NCDOT?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think, my understanding is even from my seat, like, if we want them to do something, we can ask them, we can email them, we can contact particular people, we can be petitioned. But I don't know that there's, maybe you know better. I don't think there's like is there a DOT person that would come and talk to us about stuff?
We have had them come.
Yeah?
I can offer up some.
Yeah.
For my time on the West Asheville Business Association, quite often we would have a representative from DOT come and speak and give updates. It wasn't every
Like
month,
Hayward
but
Road.
a few times a year. And so there are some
Okay.
people available, or in the past, and maybe either that could come to this organization or to River Arts District Business Association and do
Great.
the same thing.
We've had several different meetings that DOT attended and answered questions.
Nice, okay.
They updated us on Amboy Road and Meadow Road, and then they bumped everything out several years.
Well, and that makes sense with everything that was changing. Okay.
Does anyone know when the Swannanoa Greenway part, is it going to be starting real soon between Glendale and Walmart? Is that,
We give you an update, and we'll email it out.
okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, have a motion to adjourn?
Second. But we joke how you don't really need that.
Well, I made the motion.
Okay, second. All right, we are in adjournment. Thank you.
Hey, everybody, Line Fest is happening May 26th through 28th. It's the celebration of BIPOC businesses and entrepreneurship. It's gonna be awesome. Spread the word, come by.
Did I see it's already sold out?
Not yet, but it's almost there.
Yeah.
The concert.
What were the
Yeah, yeah.
dates?